Eric, it's another episode where once again we could really show off what we're made out of, our accomplishments, and we can reveal finally, because we had to keep it under wraps until USAPL 2021 championships were over after the nationals happened, that we in fact were the 2020 champions. Little known fact: 93 kg and then 81.3. I was a champion too. What were you champions of?
83 kilo was your class.
Thank you.
Omar. Come on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Yeah,
we did
no, it's a huge honor to finally have the opportunity to be recognized for our 2020 USAPL Nationals online Iron Culture unofficial two-person entrance only championship to be won and acknowledged, especially by the people who I would say. I wouldn't even say they usurped our thrones, that we allowed them, because we didn't enter the 2021 Nationals.
No.
Some might say that's because you weren't invited and didn't qualify, and neither one of you actually lift for the USAPL. And even if you did, you're not strong enough to have qualified. And
Sounds
I
like a
say that's
hater.
one perspective. But
Yeah.
yes, exactly. Mostly just hating. So those who weren't aware, just to give you a little quick insight, if you were confused by the episode itself, which you're going to listen to shortly, I posted on my MySpace an open invite to the online 2020 unofficial USAPL Nationals, and nobody wanted that smoke. So it was just me and Omar. So by default, we won the 93 and 83 classes, which were also the only classes, which meant that we were also the number 1 and number 2 overall on Wilkes Points champions. So this is just 5 champs talking about that USAPL NAS experience, really.
Yeah, I would call this episode champ shit only. And our good friends always say to be the best, you got to compete against the best. Well, Eric went on MySpace. I went on that Talk Tick. And I threw out, I was doing the dance and I said, hey, who wants to compete? No one responded. So we had the open invite. If you don't show up to our hood, that's your problem, because the invite was there. It was in cyberspace. So we are joined by 3 2021 USAPL national champions, right? We have Heather Connor, we have Sam Calhoun, and we have Jonathan Keiko in the house to talk about the recent experience. Because for those unaware, there wasn't an official 2020 USAPL due to the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as, taking that time off. We talk about their mentality, game day, those considerations. And it's just always neat to talk to competitors, Eric, at the highest level that share such interesting insights, because we can spectate. And it's, you might superficially think we talk about, being on the armchair there and kind of making these calls, well, I would have done this differently. And it's another thing entirely to actually do the damn thing. So to hear a first person perspective of what it's like competing at that level and what it means and the entire process, I think it's always wonderful.
Yeah, it's not too different how people share pop science about lifting and nutrition. They think they know something, but they don't know what they don't know. And we give a deep dive on a given topic to give people a look behind the curtain so they can have a more complete understanding of something. This is really just that, as far as the experiential culture of being a top-level USAPL competitor, someone who is a USAPL national champion and then has the opportunity, hopefully, fingers crossed, to go to Worlds. So we're shared. We got to hear the shared experiences of 3 of them today. And a lot of experience came to this winner circle roundtable. All of them are now multiple time national champions. Heather and Sam multiple times. Jonathan Keiko, he won the 2019 and 2021 Worlds. But the ladies who joined us are incredibly strong and have both competed multiple times at nationals and also at Worlds. So we were able to have a really cool compare and contrast of those experiences, what it means to compete for nationals, and then to compete for your country at Worlds, and how it's been with COVID. There's not only insights here for you as a lifter to focus on what you can control and how to be your best on any given day, and to kind of learn the pressures and all the behind scenes administrative things that go into these performances, which we get hyped up about. We see these epic battles, we listen to podcasts, we watch it on live stream. But there's a lot more going on than just what we see. And so hopefully this roundtable will give you some insight into that. And I also really just want to thank our 3 guests for being so candid in expressing their fears, doubts, and frustration with the situation that's currently going on between the USAPL and the IPF. And if you're not aware of what that is, well, we're not going to get incredibly into it in this introduction, but essentially there are some disagreements between the USAPL and the IPF about how the USAPL should be running its own drug testing and how much agency they should have, the costs and the associated with it, and that may have consequences for who gets to go, or if a team even gets to go to this year's IPF Worlds. So you can have whatever thoughts you want to have about that disagreement and whatever perspective you have. But ultimately, what we really care about here is how does it affect the lifters? And it does, which I think is something we need to acknowledge. And this is very much kind of the same way, when a divorce happens, it is the duty of the parents to ensure that the kids come first and they're best taken care of in the situation. And all I got to say is hopefully daddy and mommy take care of the kids proverbially in this situation moving forward.
Eric, I hate to do this, but I need to bring something up before we really begin this podcast.
Well, we got to start on a fresh foot. That's a
Yeah,
thing. A fresh foot? Is that a thing?
Yeah, fresh start, fresh foot, fresh feet. I don't know. Athlete's foot. It's related to powerlifting. I really don't know. But look, here's the situation, folks. We brought the three of you on because, you're the 2021 USAPL national champions. We got Sam, we got Heather, we got Jonathan Keiko. We got a lot of strong people here. The Wilks coefficient just shot through the roof. Collectively, we are winners. We don't try and differentiate who pulled the most work on this team. We're all 2021 champions. We agree on that. Cool. Let's move past that. Now, here's the thing. I don't know if you guys noticed, but in 2020, none of you wore the national champions. And I think it's kind of curious that Sam, Heather, Jonathan, you weren't the champions. And now, this is a little known fact because some people call it controversial, but actually Eric was the 93 kg 2020 USAPL national champion. We did an online competition, just myself and Eric. I competed, of course, in the, what is the other one, Eric? The 84?
83. You're the 83 champ.
83 kg, 83. And I was doing the overhead press. Anyway, smashed some records. So we were the 2020 USAPL national champions, totally legit. You guys aren't, and that is a fact. And I'm just curious why we weren't given an invite to the 2021. I know that's not up to you guys or whatever, but I'm just curious what happened because it seems like our invites got lost in the mail. And I think it's one of those situations. I mean, I'm just putting forth a pet theory of mine that Eric's too hunky, that if he was to go on stage, it would be distracting. And so maybe they just thought, hey, we got to keep this low key. This is our comeback year. We can't draw too many eyeballs. I mean, damn. So I thought that was a factor, but I'm just wondering if anyone wants to give some commentary here between the three of you. Sorry, Eric. Yeah.
I'll especially just add, considering that we invited all of the 2019 champions, I put it right there on my MySpace profile. I figured that's the best place to reach the most people. Right. I invited everybody. I tagged everyone who had a MySpace profile. I don't think that was anyone, but I did type the names out on the internet. So good is known to everyone. So, I'm not bitter that we couldn't be the online 2021 USAPL, at least get our shot at the title. But
I'm not mad about it. I'm just bringing it up because I think honesty is the best path forward, right? And it's just something that probably everyone listening wasn't aware of, right? And if we don't address it now, it probably could snowball into a bigger issue. That's all. I
think that's fair.
Well, it's because
we needed a chance to win, Everybody needed a chance. Had you guys been there, it would have just been game over at that point,
Kind of what we figured.
We need that acknowledgement too.
Where was our invite for the 2020?
For 2020?
Oh, it's right there on my page.
MySpace.
Yeah. I don't know any more official channel than that. The first social media platform. Okay. I guess I could have done AIM Messenger as well as a backup. I don't know. I think old people only use that one now, though. Am I right?
What was before that? MSN?
Gen Z. Am I right, guys?
MSN, another option. Yeah.
No, I sent the invite out on TalkTick. And so no one responded once again, but we threw that shit out there, okay? Eric went on MySpace. I was ticking on the talk. Yeah, anyways, we sent the invites.
Yep. So it's okay. We appreciate the acknowledgement, Heather. Thanks for coming on. But in all seriousness, folks, I'm very pleased to announce that we have not only the 2021 national champs in the 63, 47, and 93 kilo classes. These folks are multi-time national champions in all cases. So I'd like to introduce to the podcast these three people. We got Sam Calhoun, we got Heather Connor, and we got Jonathan Keiko. Thank you all for coming on.
What's up?
Thank you.
So today, folks, we're going to be talking about the experience of being at not only just arguably the most competitive competition in all the IPF affiliated competitions that exist, even including Worlds. Yes, I said it. But we're going to talk about the experience of doing that after having been away for all of 2020 because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And I felt like, and this is just as a spectator and a coach, there was a palpable level of anticipation and I think nervous energy going into this that I felt. And I mean, I was literally on the other side of the planet and I just have athletes competing in it. So I'm sure there was something similar for you guys. So I would love to get your guys' thoughts, experiences, and give people the proverbial look behind the curtain about what that's like. Because I think most people, they get the opportunity to spectate. They see the flashing lights, they watch the battles, but it is a wholly another experience to be the person in the arena. And I think it would just be really cool to get everyone's insights. So before we have that kind of roundtable discussion, first, I just want to properly introduce everyone. First, we have Heather Connor. You are not only the 2021 national champion, but also the 2016, 2018, and 2019 national champion, as well as the 2017 and 2019 world champ. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi.
It's an honor to have you here. So I know you lift weights. We know you're strong. Could you give us just a little bit of insight into who is Heather Connor beyond just being a super strong, badass chick?
I'm a first grade teacher.
Amazing.
So I am in chaos literally most of the year, especially during COVID. We were remote, we were face to face, remote again, face to face. Now we're staying fully remote while some people are face to face. Rules forever changing, but testing and everything is still the same. So needless to say, during the summer break, I'm doing exactly that. I am taking a huge mental break in preparation for the next school year, which I'm assuming will all be face to face. But outside of lifting a whole bunch of weight, I'm just trying to lift these kids' spirits during one of the craziest teaching years of my life.
The only thing heavier than the loads you lift are the spirits you lift. I love it. Man, first grade teacher, talking about chaos. That I felt like you were Bane for a moment, talking to Batman. You know, you're like, listen, you think powerlifting was crazy? I was born in the darkness, all right? You merely adopted it. I'm a first grade teacher, folks. So awesome. That's very cool. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for what you do as a teacher. Yeah. Who else have we got on? We got Sam Calhoun. Not to be outdone, she's the 2018, 2019, and now 2021 63 kilo national champion. Also the 2020 Arnold Grand Prix champ. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, guys.
True pleasure. Could you give us a little insight into and who is the woman behind the deadlift?
I think the most notable factor is that I am also a coach, which brings a level of complexity to the nationals because I did coach on day 1 and day 2 of nationals before I competed. So that adds a level.
Sam, I tell you what, so not nearly at the same level. I have competed at New Zealand national champs a couple of times, and so is my wife. And I often handle her on the platform and do her programming. My secret to making the 93s was coaching her the day prior to competing and getting so incredibly nervous that pretty much everything in my bowels empties the whole day. There was one year I was 94 going to the comp, did nothing to make weight, literally nothing except coach my wife, and I weighed in at 89. And that's, I think, my best Wilks score to date. So I know those feels. So I'd love to hear more about that.
It's way more stressful than lifting.
100%. I find it to be the same. So how many lifters did you have that you were working with?
I coached 3 prior to me competing.
Wow, that's not nothing. Absolutely. So so how does that affect? How do you feel that affects your performance, your headset, your making weight, all that? Because USAPL Nationals is also a huge competition.
I think it affects. I don't think it has a true negative effect for it or anything, but it prolongs the time that I'm able to think about myself. So I coached on Monday, I coached on Tuesday, and it wasn't until Wednesday that I was able to just solely focus on myself for Thursday. So, so while everyone is resting and recovering and mentally get prepared, I'm still in the work mindset.
Absolutely.
Which could be a positive thing.
That's true. I guess you don't have to be as kind of constantly in that anticipatory state of thinking about your own competition. You get to be a little distracted. Well, I think it's awesome to have you on. It'll be great to get your perspective as a coach. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you've got a master's degree in exercise science. Is that correct?
Correct.
Look at that. So respect for the science of lifting, which of course that's I do that far better than actual lifting. So I got love for that. But thank you so much for being on. Really looking forward to hearing your experiences. And then finally, we have the man, Jonathan Keiko, on. You came back and just won your second USAPL national title, 2019-93, and now 2021 national champ. You had a really tight battle, winning by 0.5 kilos. Although I will give you some big props here. It wasn't too long ago before that you totaled, I believe, 10 or 12 kilos more than that, close to a 900 kilo total, which I know you're in the hunt for. So this was a 9-for-9 day, but and I can say well done on all your attempt selection. Might have not been the best day that you had hoped for, but you made some really good calls and you came out on top. And that was just an awesome battle to watch. I really enjoyed that 93 kilo session. So welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Thank you.
So who are you, Mr. Keiko, besides a man with just a monstrous bench press and just excellent angles on your cameras for that said bench press?
I mean, before powerlifting, I did video games. That's what I did for like 3 years straight. I got paid to play video games, and when I burned out that, I kind of jumped back into powerlifting. So
that's incredible.
Now we're here.
So what were your video games that you were good at?
I played League of Legends, a little bit of COD, and mainly League though. Mainly League is what I did.
Okay. Call of Duty, League of Legends. I love it. So I have been, again, this is off camera. We exposed my age a little bit. I'm going to do it some more. I have been practicing on Street Fighter 2. Original. We're talking, I don't even like turbo. Like it's too fast for me, you know, on SNES. And so do you do any fighting games? Is that
fighting games? No. Like Evo and stuff?
Okay.
No.
So
I have a lot of friends
probably
that do though. Yeah. You probably
I'm sure. Awesome. See, that's all I need is just to tell people that I beat a professional gamer, not share that you're actually a first-person shooter, and then just really boost myself up. That's what I'm about, appearances. But no, that's awesome. Another quick question for you regarding that. I think people, if you know, but the world of like video game and electronic sports like EV games is incredible to me. And the reaction times and the speed there, I think, is just nuts. So when did you start to find that your peak hit, and then did you find you started to get a little worse, or was it just the competition was too good, or just wasn't your passion?
It was to kind of barely get into it. It just became a little too stressful. Like, yeah. It was too stressful versus like what I would get out of it. You know, like I enjoyed it, but the stress was higher than how much I enjoyed it. So like now I still play like casually, and so I enjoy it now. You know, there's no like things on the line and what have you. You know,
it's a whole nother world, man. I for someone my age, it's crazy to me to see it now like on ESPN and to hear people talking about like, yeah, man, you hit your stride in your mid-20s and then your reaction time starts to go off. I'm like, what is this? The 100-meter? Like, what are we talking about? But it really is. It's gotten to that point where video games have gotten the same level of like recognition, competitiveness, and a whole industry behind it. There's like trainers and teams and shit. It's it still blows my mind. I think it's awesome. So that's really cool to see that you had probably some digital competitive drive that has now brought you into powerlifting. So that's pretty sweet, man.
I never knew that.
Oh, you didn't?
Oh, you're about to learn so much in this
about
podcast.
Esports or about.
I mean, I tried playing World of Warcraft, and I got turned into like a sheep the other day, and I'm like, what I do? Why did you do that to me?
Oh, it's a cruel world out there, Heather. You can't.
It's
I could just tell
yeah.
you'd be like too kind to people, and some it's like a PvP nation, and you're like, hey, I'll help you out, and they're like, kill.
Like, hey,
Yeah,
any
I'm like,
game.
why did you do that?
Because people are terrible and they manifest themselves in their most trolly online.
Another Batman quote is, "Some men just want to see the world burn." So, or turn to sheep, in this case. So Omar, I'm gonna hand it over to you because I know you understand the people. You understand what people think they see goes into USAPL Nationals.
Sure.
But I think we need to get a better understanding of what it's really like. I mean, watching it sometimes it can be crazy. You got multiple platforms going. You've got this pirate yelling about the devil, and you've got these flashing lights. It's I mean, people call it WrestleMania for a reason. But I think, Omar, I'd love to hear you help them unpack what this experience is like from someone who's actually in the cockpit, if you will.
100%, man. No, it is. I don't think I missed the satanic undertones of the USAPL competition. That's a whole can of worms to unpack. I will ask the pointed question to each lifter, and then we can open it up, because I'll just say real quick before we go on, if you haven't listened to it, Jonathan Keiko goes in depth on a King of the Lifts episode about his journey and on that day and all those considerations. I think is well worth a listen. But I want to first let's ask Heather about your competition day, how it went, what you're expecting, maybe leading up to the meet. So where you were situated as a lifter leading up to the meet, and then how the actual meet day went. What were some of the considerations that you had to make on game day to sort of make happen what you want to happen, and maybe what were some of those environmental factors on that day? Like, what's it like, being there under all those lights, the yelling going on, the satanic undertones of the announcer that we'll just leave aside here. What was it like for you?
It was pretty, I don't want to say it was pretty easy because I don't want to downplay anybody that was going against me, but I did have a significant lead going into nationals, which I knew I would. My training had been going pretty well compared to my competition in early September in 2020. So I knew what to expect going in there. I was talking to my coach about changing around some numbers. Usually with the 47 kilo class being the lightest and females typically going first, which that didn't happen this past year. They let the men go first. We typically weigh in first, like around 6 o'clock, what would have been 6 o'clock at nationals. But we went on to weigh in around 11 o'clock, which didn't matter to me, being significantly underweight. For those that don't know, in pounds, it's 103.6. I was casually staying around like 99 pounds. Give or take, I stay around 99, 100 pounds on a good day. So for me, compared to a lot of the other 47 kilo lifters who do have to cut, I was able to eat breakfast that morning. So going into weigh-ins, I was pretty full, and I trained fasted. So I also lift fasted, especially for squats, because I do have some gastric issues that can cause some flare-ups or just make it very uncomfortable to lift. So after weigh-ins, we have 2-hour weigh-ins. For those that are listening that aren't familiar, I had simply a yogurt. I had a yogurt just to have something on my stomach, and then 2 hours later we were squatting. I went after the American record, just chipped it, and it went, me and my coach had changed those numbers. Like, he had something in mind, but I also had something in mind too. So we discussed it probably the night prior. I said, I know I can get it if we do it this way. And sure enough, he's not with me all the time. He is online. So he's like, I trust your judgment. You know what you can and cannot do when it comes to game day. So the numbers I had chose worked out perfectly. I was able to get that American record squat. He did his best when it came to bench. For me, I take little jumps after the first attempt, but take bigger jumps going into the third. Unfortunately, my first attempt just flew up like I knew it would. So he made that bigger jump going into the second, which kind of gassed me leading into the third. So I missed it. And for deadlifts, I knew I was going to open up with the American record of 408 pounds. That was always the goal. I wanted to make a statement by opening up with 4 times the body weight. I did that. Missed my third of 200 kilos. I knew it was hit or miss after the second of 424 pounds with how it moved. My body's tired at this point, but I didn't want to leave the platform without at least attempting it because I have hit it in training multiple times at this point. I got there like a week early just to, like Sam said, get well rested, focus on little things, and really get my mind right. I'm like a ball of anxiety. So I literally was just doing things that just kept me calm the whole time. So the night before I competed, I went and watched Cruella, which 10 out of 10, I recommend. Everything about the movie is great. So I was just really just relaxing and doing things that was going to help me just be calm before a very chaotic day. As far as like the meet being ran, it was ran pretty smoothly in my opinion. The only thing that I did run into, which happened before competition, like last year and leading into this, was just like a situation with my mom who does suffer from memory issues. So typically before every competition, I call her and we talk before I start warming up. And then after the end of my final deadlift, like I usually call her immediately and she's cheering because she was tuning into the live stream. Well, this competition, I didn't necessarily have it go that way because, I could be in Daytona for 5 days, but every single day she'd be like, hey, have you made it to Daytona yet? So it's a very repetitive thing. So I had to mentally, go over that obstacle of it's not going to be the way it has been. So, after every like lift, as far as like squat, bench, and deadlift, I was on the phone with her just constantly updating her. So regardless of her situation, she could still be present with me during that time.
Yeah, I can't imagine what that would be like, but I think it's very commendable that you were doing that to help her be present for it.
I never want to take her out of something that she has always been such a big part of. And I've been telling people like King of the Lifts and all of them, like I'm super fortunate for SBD for getting these videos and getting these pictures because that's something I can hang on to and consistently show her. So it does help her be like, oh, she did do this. And, because I knew it wasn't the same, that was another little just like mental thing I had to get over because had I let it consume me, I think it really would have affected my performance come game day. So.
And a quick question then, Heather, that's beautiful. Is how do you overcome those things, like those thoughts or like those obstacles? Because I think we hear from a lot of lifters that obstacles come on game day. So like things don't go according to plan. What does that look like? Like, what do you tell yourself? You know what I mean? That something happens, it doesn't go according to plan. How do you surmount that then so that you go on to the next goal and so forth?
I focus on the cans. I can't dwell on the can't part. I can't control what's happening with my mom, but what I can do is let her know what's constantly going on. If I miss a lift, I can't dwell on it because if I'm sitting there focusing on that, I'm too distracted moving forward into the next lift. You got to take it one lift at a time. So for a lot of people, they just sit here, they'll put blame on themselves, to put blame on the judges and the refs and stuff like that. So it's like, okay, I missed this lift. Let's focus on the next thing. Let's focus on something I know I can do right now. I can't sit here and look at my phone or look at a recording and say, oh, this is exactly what went wrong. It doesn't matter. What's done is already done. So what I can do is make sure I can make up those little kilos going into the next lift. I try telling people all the time, you cannot dwell on the can'ts. Just focus on what you can do and push forward with it. So
that's well said. And it seems like focusing on adding up those little kilos worked for you. And so I think this was the first time you totaled over 400. And not only that, but you totaled 408, which I want to know if that was intentional, because that's, I think, 0.5 kilos over the world record. Unofficial, of course, but fantastic job on that.
Thank you. It was intentional. I knew what I could do. And, this is something because with COVID, like we were all shut down from everything. So for people that do have the advantage of having home gyms that were able to train like myself, I mean, I was sitting here crunching numbers. What do I have to do? And at this point, my deadlift hadn't blown up. So I was doing good getting like 407 on deadlift. At that point in time during COVID, I never expected to get anywhere close to 200 kilos. But it just shot up. And so at that point, I'm like, oh yeah, it's happening, and it's going to happen on the second attempt of deadlifts regardless. So, being able to do that was a very surreal moment, and something I said in 2019 that I was so close to having that it was just a matter of time before I got it. So.
Well done. Well done indeed.
Look, I'll say I'm a mama's boy, so I'm loving this story. Here's my question for you. How did mom feel after you let her know that you won another USAPL championship?
Oh my gosh, she's my biggest fan. She cheered, and I mean, she just yesterday. Like sometimes I can joke about this because it's like reliving the moment over and over. She asked me like yesterday, like, so how's Daytona? I'm like, yeah, I won. I won. It was great. And it's like something that we just celebrate again. So in the chaos of everything that's going on, these moments are still very precious to me. And I just can feel her happiness. Just like, man, I knew you would win. I knew you would. I'm like, yeah, we talk about it. So.
No, that is beautiful. And I'll just say in closing that you know how I knew you were a good person? When you said, in WoW, World of Warcraft, you're like, why are they trying to kill me? Like, you're just out here, like, lifting up the souls of grade 1 children, showing them a better way, a better future. And you're like, hey, guys, I'm here to participate. And they're like, nope. And you're like, but why?
It's probably the grade 1 kids turning me into sheep. It's probably
yeah. Taking the revenge. I'll just make 2 recommendations as a gamer for parasympathetic recovery that you might enjoy that just has, I think, the goals, the aspirations, everything you might find appealing would be 1, Animal Crossing. I don't know if you played it. And 2 would be Stardew Valley, because that's parasympathetic. You're about that life?
Stardew Valley. I love it. I get lost in those minds and it's like, hey, it's getting late. You should go. I'm like, no, I gotta do this.
See, I feel that though, just based on the description, because it's like, I get it. I actually, while I do play shooters and a few other things, it's like in Grand Theft Auto, where it's like you can hijack cars and of course like kill prostitutes and stuff, and everyone does it. I'm like, but why am I doing this? Like it just feels like if it's like a repressed like, I guess, anger, like outlet that people could do. I'm like, this just kind of feels weird, I'd rather play like Zelda or this and that. So when you said about the WoW, and I was like, all right, you're on a different level. Like I'm here to mess people up in World of Warcraft. Like I'm a troll. I'm trying to get after you. But if you're like, but why are they turning me into sheep? I'm like, okay, let's go Stardew Valley. Let's go Animal Crossing. Let's try and raise up people. Hell yeah.
I kept playing Stardew Valley once I realized how spicy it got. Like one of the like little mission things it made me do was go and get the mayor's like pants from some woman's house. I was like, what is happening?
Oh yeah. Oh yes. No, I will say that is an awesome story, and I think that frames it your experience, and I think it is interesting, the rich tapestry of everyone, how everyone has kind of their own narrative of what happens. Sam, if you could tell us in a similar way, so you're a coach, okay, you got that master's. Eric was like, hey, all right, we're about that science, I love it. But leading up, so we didn't have that 2020 allegedly for the 3 of you. Once again, USAPL Nationals. So leading up, how did training go? What was the mindset like? Like, what were you thinking? And then kind of game day, because I know once again that you had athletes that you were coaching a few days prior. Like, where were you? And then on the actual game day, how did things go? What were some of the environmental factors? Can you just give us a rundown on that?
So leading up to the meet was hard in the sense of motivation. So like we're used to competing at least like 3 times a year. We have nationals, we have honors, we have worlds, and like each year is the same cycle. So only competing once in a year, like you lose practice. You lose practice of the mindset, of the meet day nerves, meet day anxieties. You just lose practice of the total package. So coming into nationals, it took me a while to get excited. Mainly because we all knew it was going to be a baby nationals. We knew it wasn't going to be the big 1,000+ lifted nationals. We knew it was going to be dampened by COVID. There was a period of time that we thought we were going to have to wear masks. We knew the spectator viewing was going to be low, so it was just very hard to get excited for it. It just seemed like we was going to travel for a local competition. So it wasn't really until like a month out that I was like, okay, like we're about to compete. I'm ready. I'm excited to compete. So that fire just wasn't there. And being in the 63s, like each year we've had storylines, we've had like hyped up matchups, with the two Jens and myself and Meg Scanlon. There's always been some type of hype, some type of rivalry leading to nationals, and this nationals, it just wasn't there. But I kind of had to, but individually we also had a job to do, regardless, of the motivation factors. We still had a job to do, and the goal was still to win nationals, regardless of the motivation level, going into it. So I had to, get myself pumped up, and also my clients around me, because they're also going into it with the same mindset, essentially. For them, it was like, well, do I belong? Do I belong to be one of 10 people competing? For a couple of them, it was their first nationals. So I also want to make sure they had a positive experience, even though I know like it wasn't a true representation of nationals. As a coach, I still want to make sure their time and their money and their efforts, are worth it. So yeah, but I was excited once I got there. We see old friends, everyone that we haven't seen in really a year. So that was fun. The clients who competed before me, they all did well. So that helps like mitigate some of the stresses, so they killed it, which helped me out mentally, because I didn't have that added stress, So everyone around me was in like a really good mood, which helps my performance and, my meet day preparation. So going into the meet, I felt really good. Weight wasn't really an issue. The hardest part is just kind of controlling my eating, being away from home, still working, eating out, but made weight with no problem. We had 6 people in our flight, so it was a really tiny flight. And for myself, initially, it really wasn't an issue. We came in with a game plan to be conservative on squats, just based on training. We wasn't trying to do anything spectacular, which I think played to my benefit, simply because my third attempt wasn't an all-time PR or even close to it. So the rest time in between attempts didn't really factor into much. It wasn't until deadlift that I really think everything escalated and the effect of the rest time really was prominent. But even with deadlifts, first attempt felt fine. Second attempt actually felt harder than it should have been. And third attempt just wasn't there for a variety of reasons. One, the short flight. 2, I decided to go beltless, meet the experiment that failed. But all in all, I still accomplished the goal at hand, which was to win. So overall, I'm proud of my effort. Not satisfied by any means. Thankfully, Nationals actually relit a fire within me. To know that you could kind of decrease in performance, that made me open my eyes a little bit, and made me realize that I do need to work harder on the little things and not simply just go through the motions. You could work hard without working hard. You could work hard without intentionally working hard. So not to say I didn't work hard leading internationally, because I did, but it's some small things that I know I could have done better. Like tracking my macros, even though I was good on weight. Just making sure I'm getting well fed. Making sure I'm intentional about my accessories. Just the little things. That I know I could do better. That I will.
And you said that it relit the fire after competing at nationals again, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, I did.
Let me ask you this then. How did you turn it up for Meet Day 2021 Nationals? Because as you're saying, that from not competing during much of 2020, that it kind of, you're used to that cycle that kind of, gets you hyped or keeps you motivated on track, or that a regular wave. So was there anything special you had to do to kind of be there on game day, or did it just naturally arise on game day?
Well, it just naturally arrived because I mean the goal is still the goal, but we want to make as many attempts as possible. So whatever weight gets put on the bar, we need to execute to a high level to hit that weight. So regardless of how I feel inside, like that's still the goal, and the goal was still to win.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to self-sabotage myself, of not doing that. So it kind of just naturally happened.
Yeah. Came too far to
Right.
not win. Here's a
Right.
question for you then. What are some of those game day choices where you said you decided to do the experiment, which is to go beltless on deadlifts, but after your second attempt, as an example, because you realized that the flight was going to be smaller, so it's like, all right, let me adjust my squats. These are all like the micro choices that I think like champions or true competitors have to make. But as an example, after the second deadlift felt heavy, did you think in the back of your mind, like, all right, maybe I better I better put this belt on for the third deadlift? Was that a consideration? Like, are those some of the things that go on in your mind, and like having maybe someone there with you to bounce those ideas off of? Like, what's that look like? Some of those micro game day choices.
So it's crazy because like I grabbed my belt to take with me to towards the platform. So I'm like, all right, if I need it, it's there. If I need it, it's there. And the second time I was like, ooh, that was a little heavy. But then a part of my mind was like, well, can you really put it on now? Like, would that mess you up even more to
Sure.
put it on now? You haven't warmed up with it. You haven't used it in months, So it's like, would that, affect me even more? So I think if I would have put it on, I would have been more of a head case,
Sure.
because it would have felt uncomfortable, it would have felt a little weird, and it would have messed up my mechanics just so slightly. So I don't regret it just because I did it and I still won, so I didn't lose anything from trying. But now for training, I've been wearing it all the time because basically what happened was I got really good at doing beltless deadlifts. And when it was time to put it on, it was essentially too late. I just became out of practice. But now it's fine, so all is well.
So I got a question, Sam. What was your experiences that led you to think, you know what, let me try a good run at going beltless? Did you feel like you couldn't get your air in as well with a belt on, or is it just not the right position? Because I've had a few people there are a few prominent powerlifters who do pull beltless, and I'm always curious as to what their experiences are that lead to that.
Well, my entire program is based on RPE, and the weights I was hitting, I was happy with them. And each week I was able to go up, my singles were moving well, and it was very respectable weight for me, beltless. So it kind of gave me it made training exciting. Because even though I wasn't hitting like lifetime PRs, it was like, whoa, this is a beltless PR. Oh, this is some pretty good weight beltless. Well, let's see how far we could take this. I just never needed it, and we were still progressing forward without it. Mm-hmm. And then like some days I was like, oh, let me just put it on, and it felt foreign. And one thing that you guys may find silly that I didn't realize literally until like 3 weeks out. So 3 weeks out, I realized. So I have 3 SPG belts, and one belt I've been having for like 3 years, and that belt is well worn, it's well broken in. I use it all the time. It's comfortable. And I didn't realize that was in my competition gym bag from my last competition. So the entire time I was putting on a belt, it was a brand new belt. And it's something so subtle, but it makes a difference. And I didn't literally realize that until like 3 weeks. I was like, oh, that's why this belt just felt so weird. It essentially wasn't my belt. And if I would have realized that, it probably wouldn't have made a difference. But the fact that I didn't know that, every time I put it on, it just felt so foreign. So I'll do a 7 and I'll just kind of toss it to the side. Like, I just felt better beltless, even when the weight got heavy. And I was even contemplating a couple weeks before the meet. And I pulled 495 beltless, which is like 10-pound gym PR, all-time PR. So I was like, I know the strength is there. So it wasn't a factor of like not being strong enough, because that was like I said, it was a lifetime gym PR. And only 6 pounds under my all-time best. So the data was there. What I didn't consider is that in a competition, I'm squatting before, I'm benching, I'm doing all of these things before deadlifting. And that was something I did not, consider, which was the biggest variable in my opinion. So I wasn't trained for that, So my back was pretty fatigued. I just wasn't ready. So
that all makes sense, and I totally relate to two different belts that are supposed to be the same, feeling very different. This is a more extreme version of that, but I have two belts that I lift with. One is a 5-year-old 10 millimeter lever belt. The other one I got in '05, folks, from a company that I'm not even sure is still around, House of Pain, and it's just your old double prong 10 millimeter belt, and that thing feels like it is old enough to get a driver's license now. So, because it is. So yeah, they can feel very different, even though they're both quote unquote 10 millimeter belts. So I understand.
Quick side note, and then I have a final question for you, Sam, is I finally made the leap because I was like, all right, I've been using a 10 millimeter belt this whole time. It's felt comfortable. But if I'm really to unlock this shit, it's time for that 13 millimeter. And I was using, so it's like a weightlifting belt, the 10 millimeter. So it's 5 and 5. So 5 was a thinner band, and then the other 5, a thicker one. Cool. Very pliable, as you said, like conformed to my torso. I bought the SBD belt. I bought it several months ago. I'm like, all right, 13 millimeter, like, wow, what a difference, like, especially upright torso on the squat. My ass still hasn't broken it in. And when you say, like, it doesn't feel like your belt on your body, despite its thickness, there's a gap on my back, just like this wide, that when I put it on, it feels like it's tight around my obliques. And then there's just that space. And so I've been lazy, because training's been fine, but I haven't been, like, peaking. But I know what it's like. It sounds like such a small thing. But this SBD, everyone uses it. I mean, it is made really well. It's 13 millimeter. It's very rigid. But I prefer that like 10 millimeter weightlifting belt as it stands right now. And when you put that on and you feel that difference, just like that sense on your body, man, it could really throw you off.
Yeah. And I love my SBD belt. I love it. I wouldn't use a different belt. But like I said, I just became out of practice. You guys know strength is very specific. And you get good at what you train at,
Mm-hmm.
So I just wasn't practicing how I was going to play.
Well, Omar, I think we probably lost our SBD sponsorship with that comment of yours, but I think we should probably reach out to World of Warcraft potentially as an alternative.
Yeah, to get that paycheck. Well, hey, I'm recovering the fumble. Don't you worry, Eric. I asked Heather about video games. Sam, because this is the subtext for this, and I do think there's parallels, honestly, in ways. I'm not going to derail this podcast, but Sam, for yourself, do you play any video games?
No, but my husband wanted me to give him a shout out. He is Uncle Campy on Twitch. So my video game plan is through him.
Okay.
Yes.
Vicarious existence, but you see it. I do like, again, depends on the mood, the type, and everything that we're talking about. But, as a little unwinding session, I think also, I think it was Heather that spoke about the idea of just, not being distracted, but like, hey, you're doing all these things, like what's something I can focus on? I think it's pretty powerful. So I'm going to ask Mr. Video Game himself, Jonathan Keiko, who once again had on King of the Lift Side, listen to that episode, man, where you spoke about meet day. But if you could just talk to us about training overall, in 2020, what it felt like leading up to the meet, what you're expecting, Jonathan, and then on game day, once again, those environmental factors, like how things played out, how you thought they'd play out. Some of those, what I find really fascinating personally, is kind of what Heather and Sam were talking about, which are those split-second decisions or those game day choices that might seem inconsequential from the outside, like, oh, okay, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. It's like, but everything adds up. And when you're at this high level of a competition, it matters.
Right. I'll start from 2020 and I'll make my way to Nats from there.
Yep.
Because, I was training in the home gym from, I think, March 2020, around there. I think that's about right, like mid-March to a week out. I did a meet in 2021, February 29th, I did a meet. And then the first time stepping back in the gym was a week out from that meet. So I was in the home gym for like a whole year training. And for a month in there, I was on, I kind of talked about it, but I could reiterate it here. Like, I was training off of like water barrels. I remember squatting off the water barrel. I did that on stream. On stream. Yeah, because I was just like, hey guys, if I die, just like call 911. It's like someone's here to call it. You know,
So the stream was for safety, really.
the
It's just to
stream
have
was
some-
50% safety, 50% for just keep me company. Like, and yeah, fortunately, I had a barbell, and I like prior to COVID, I had a barbell and I had a bench press. So I didn't have a rack. So I was so the bench press for a month. Literally, it was like a 3.5 weeks. I was benching off chairs, like wooden chairs. Like it was just like a desk chair, right? I had one on each side, and I'd like JM press it out, and like start my set. And then
for your bench, that seems perhaps unsafe. I mean, I
It
guess
was
you had to
very
limit your
unsafe.
loads.
Yeah, it was very unsafe. Because I think the heaviest I did on the I loaded 405 on those chairs, and then
my
like when
God.
I set it down, they started creaking, and I was like,
Yep.
okay, I'm not going any higher. And then you know, like we eventually made like wooden racks out of like plywood, and then the rack heights were wrong. We messed up, so we had to like file those down and all. You know, it was just all bad. Like, you know, the garage was slanted. It was funny because like I lifted in there for so long. When I came back to do that meet in February, like squatting off a leveled floor felt weird. Like I did, like my bar path, and only until like recently, like has it felt like, oh yeah, like this is what level, you know, squatting off level floor. Like my bar path's different a little. That kind of makes sense, right? Because it's like you're like in pseudo heels, I guess. You know what I mean when I say that. So, but anyways, Nats. That was this year's 2021 Nats was just this wild ride. I don't know if you kind of heard, but my flight got also delayed. So we're on the plane. We boarded to leave for Dallas Fort Worth, and that was my connecting flight, and then Dallas Fort Worth to Daytona, right? And when we were leaving, they were like, "Hey, the plane doesn't have fuel." And I'm just like, "Okay." So we're sitting, you know, that gets delayed. I missed my connecting flight, and then there's no more flights leaving to Daytona that day. They said, like, come back tomorrow, and I'm just like, no, we can't do that. I'm like, no, I'm getting to Daytona today, no matter what. So we end up flying to Gainesville, and then driving down to Daytona via Lyft. So that was a whole. I actually timed it. I thought it was shorter. I thought it was 15 hours, but it was actually like 17 hours from start when I woke up to get to from checking in to the hotel. And when I checked in, there was a building on fire. Did you guys see that? By the way, Heather? Did you see that? Like a building across the street was on fire. Like actually. Like I opened the blind. I was like, oh, I'm like, sweet, finally at the hotel, right? I opened the blind. This building's on fire.
I would have went in full panic mode. Like that's who I am.
Yeah, no, but okay, yeah, game day. So big ordeal leading to that. I weigh in and I'm way under because I did like 20,000 steps in the airport, like in between the airports. It's crazy. And I weighed in 3 pounds under, I think, which is like super light for me. I haven't weighed that. I don't think I've ever weighed in that light. So like split decision things, right? So we're going to that split decision things on game day. I'm like, well, I'm super light, whatever. Like, let me just do my refeed. Let me try and get back up to my training weight. So mind you, like for example, I train maybe around like 210, 212, right? And so I weighed in like 202.1. So I'm like, like that's kind of far, you know. Normally I weigh in like 204, to like high 204s. So like the whole day I was just tired and like, you know, squats. I knew it was going to be like rough when I unracked squats, and like during my warm ups, my legs were just wobbly, and, like my hips are, you know, like when you get there and it's something, or you know when it's like that. And I mean, like I've said, I've done weight cuts a million times, you know, at this point, and I'm just like, because I know what to do, but it was just, I feel like my body was just tired, you know. So we do squats. See, so on this Nats, I didn't PR on anything, and Eric kind of mentioned I ended up totaling 12.5 kilos less than I did in that February meet that I mentioned, and so I totaled 892 in that February meet. and that was a comfy total. Like I had 900 on that day in February versus Nats like 3 weeks ago. Like we like me and Joey agreed that we were just like, if I'm tired, like if things that necessarily didn't feel heavy, it's just that everything was just kind of slow. Because you're just like depleted, you're just tired,
Yeah.
and like so we ended up squatting like 2.5 kilos less than I did last meet. uh I benched 5 kilos less, which is still the American record, by the way.
Yep.
I broke my American record with my second attempt, and then the platforms were so slippery. I just like committed to photo pressing. Like I was just like, I'm just not gonna let myself slip, and I was just like, let me just photo press this. And then by the time I got the deads, I'm kind of like just like a recap of that day. I was just cramping. I started cramping because my body weight wasn't like holding any of the water and all that stuff. So super like freaky, right? Like split decision to do, like a decision to do on the game on that day. You're just like, well, I'm cramping really bad. Like both my quads, I just couldn't stand. Like if I stood, they just like locked up. And we were just like, well, I don't know. We just get more salt in. We didn't really have time to make that. Like we were just trying to get fluids in just to try and keep hydrated. And yeah, it was scary because it was just like, I took my first dead, and like when I set it down, my whole hand like closed back up, and then and I was just like, oh, okay, that's not correct. I was like, that's not right. But and then my second dead, my whole like right side of my body, like I think my second deadlift was like 733. If I'm remembering right. And when I set it down, like my whole right side, all the way, like my whole arm, just like locked up, and I just like limped, like because I couldn't like bend my leg, so I just kind of like hopped back to the back, and I was telling them like they were just like, "Bro, are you okay?" Like because one of my competitors saw me, and I think he probably thought I like hurt myself because I came in like limping, So, but yeah, I was able to pull off that win by half a kilo, and I just pulled what I needed to do. Like again, like I pulled 750 to win, and I pulled 760 at my last comp, like very comfortably. But like, yeah, it was a hard day, and I was just like what Sam was saying, like I was proud that I was able to do it, like under circumstances, under like unforeseen things, like just you never know what happens. Anything can happen, right? And like and that travel, that's one of those like worst case nightmare scenarios where if it can happen, it happened, right? So if something bad can happen, it'll happen, or it can happen rather. And I was proud of my performance, but I wasn't satisfied like one bit.
Right.
I remember like when we finished, even for like 2 weeks post of that meet, I was just mad. I don't even know like at what. I was just mad because I was just like, man, I could have done better. Or I was just like, I'm not mad at anyone or anything. Just like the essence of I could have done better was just lingering for me, And then like world is up in the air kind of still. So
yeah,
So
and it was for you in 2020 as well. Like you were the 2019 champ. You wanted to go to Worlds, didn't get that opportunity. Right. So I'm sure. Well, I'm not sure. I'm curious. How are you managing the emotions of whether or not you're going to get to go to Worlds? Because just for the listener, I think the world record for the 93 kilo class is something like 40 kilos less than you've totaled. You have the unofficial bench world record. You've actually, just to give a little shout out to you, I think you've unofficially totaled like a kilo more than Ashton did in the 93. So the Worlds is, I think.
This Nats, I don't know. I need to check. I don't think so. I totaled 880 and a half. I think he's totaled 881.
So yeah,
as 93. But
however, you have done 892. That's what I was referring to.
892 and a half.
Yeah. Which is why it's an unofficial American record in the 93s. But I think the point being is that it would be good for you to go to Worlds because you're in a position where arguably you are the best 93 in the IPF right now. And to have the opportunity to have that really, really count and set those things, and you haven't yet had the opportunity. So how do you as a competitor, knowing that you probably would like to do that, how do you manage those expectations and deal with the potential unknown there?
Something 2020 taught me, especially, was to just take it a day at a time. You know, like, you never know what's gonna be there tomorrow, you know, or who will even be here tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
So I don't try to linger on it. You know, I don't let it try to, because it's just gonna bug you, right? Like, if you think about it, like, and it's, especially if it's out of your control.
Yep.
You know, like, if we get to go and we get to do our thing, that's good for us. That's like more power to us, right? But like, if whatever happens and it's just another like weird, unfortunate event, I mean, I just have to win again then. You know, like, that's all. That's all it is. It's just time. The hard part is just time. You know, it just takes time. You know, like, you're gonna have to wait again. Just like how we were saying leading up to 2021 nationals, we knew it wasn't like, again, we knew it wasn't a big nationals. It was almost like glorified local meet. You know, just kind of like, hey, let's get everyone back together real quick. Let's get one out. You know, let's kind of like do a meet really fast. You know, let's just call it nationals, get everyone here together. You know, but yeah, you can't. I don't want to linger on it. And like, if they say I can go, I can go. If I can't, I can't. Because like last year, we were denied that, and that would have been my first Worlds last year.
Yep.
So it was even, it's in that's a very unique position, I feel like, because some of the people who didn't get to go, they're like, oh, I've went before, or and so there's always that uncertainty. You're just like, oh my, like, I have to win again. Like, what if I don't win? What if I do bad? Whatever, right? So it's just like, like that. The win from 2019 will get thrown out the window, kind of, So there's just things, and you just learn how to, like, you can't dwell on that, it's just eat you away, eat you alive,
Absolutely. It's like you said, Heather, you got to focus on the cans.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, you got to. And it was like that, the whole like 2020 thing. Like, I am one, like, I hate inconsistencies. I hate not having structure. Like, if you were to go in my classroom, everything has a home. So I know when something has been placed in the wrong spot. Like, it's a very big OCD thing. So even leading into this nationals, they were very slow putting out information. And I'm sitting here trying to like work around it. Like, okay, well, how many people are going to be in my flight? When is this flight going to go on? Oh, I bet that time's going to change, because that doesn't make sense. So like, my mind is constantly just like going. And that plays a huge part in my anxiety. But, with 2020 Worlds, Sheffield had got canceled. So I was looking forward to that. But I knew that with the amount of competitors that were only going, and when stuff started dropping, I was like, dang, I know we're about to get pulled out. But for whatever reason, like, 2020 Worlds was still like an option. And it was just a matter of time before it's like, okay, all these other teams are dropping out. When are they going to say, hey, it's like we had it in the back of our mind, but just go ahead and say it. So with everything going on with the USAPL now and the IPF, it's like, can you let us know something? Because this is happening in the middle of my school year. I like to plan things ahead of time. Some of us are very fortunate to be able to go back to Worlds, like, Jonathan was saying, like, that would have been his first Worlds, so to have that taken away from him, well, the bar was kind of set high for him to keep that position to be able to compete again if it is to go on. Whereas some of the people that were invited, they're no longer on that list. And we didn't know if they were just going to have the 2019 team represent. What was that like? Nothing was set in stone. And I think the constant questions I had going through my mind, I knew they weren't going to be answered, because I don't even think they had the answers to them. Was it going to be held in Belarus again? That was crazy to even think about. Nobody wanted that for very obvious reasons. So when that was changed, okay, now it's in Sweden. Here we have more hope. And then here comes petty drama. And you're like, even right now, like, we got an email to fill out, but even in that email, we're getting told specific information, what might happen, what might not happen. So it's really on ourselves if we choose to select this invite and say, yeah, you know what, I am going to risk this. I am going to put my yourself out there for maybe being able to compete, maybe not being able to compete. But it's like one of those things, like if I'm not going to compete, okay, let me focus on the next thing, because it's not like we had 6 months all these previous years from nationals to worlds. We have like 12 weeks. Our body is constantly going in this training cycle. We're being beat down. It's like, are we or are we not? We just want answers, and answers are not what we're getting at this time. And I think it's very disrespectful to the lifters that are being affected by this. I mean, you know, you may not know something, but keep us informed. Don't just leave us wondering, like, well, do you know? Do you not know? Like, we shouldn't be the ones reaching out to said people, you know, and that's what's happening in some cases because we're just over it. So for myself and them included, I'm sure I can speak for them as well. Like, we have gotten an email saying, like, fill this out, so they can at least put some nominations in for us. But what happens after that, we're clueless. So.
Yeah, I know. It's just everyone's crossing their fingers. Like everyone who asks me, I'm like, just cross your fingers. You know, I'm just like, just cross your fingers. You know, so yeah, it's an unfortunate situation. I feel like too, like especially that email. It's just like, hey, we're gonna nominate, but they could, you know, like if we don't go, don't be surprised. I'm just like, okay.
It seems like in that email, it seems like the USAPL wants the drama. Like they're waiting for like the IPF to say, nah, you guys can't come. Because I think they will use that as the ammo to split away. Because I think that's where their heart is at.
Well, y'all need to have that drama before I drop some money, because as soon as that's all,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Y'all better figure it out, or I'm just gonna be a hot. Y'all can get every word out of me.
Yeah, no, honestly, people are like, you know, some people have to spend money for passports. Like my fiance, like we expedited her passport, like right the day after we got back from nationals. We were just like, well, let's get the passport ready just in case, you know, like let's just get it, like let's get it expedited so there's no wait time just in case, you know, because it had been like 13 weeks out at that time. You know, so people are using, you know, there is money being like, people need to plan. People need us, you know, people are spending money, and you know,
plane ticket, a $12 plane ticket at minimum.
Yeah.
You know, and the longer we wait, the more expensive.
yeah.
Like SBD sponsors a lot of our trip, like hotel fares, flight, everything. So my biggest thing is the longer y'all wait to give us an answer, the more that's going to cost them. And I was thinking about it today. Let's say like on average, like every lifter that is sponsored by SBD is like $3,000, $3,500. That adds up if you're like 6 athletes in with just the open team, you know, and the longer we wait, the more that price goes up. And if they are to pay that, and then the IPF is like, hey, just kidding, you guys, we don't want you here, that somebody's losing out on a lot of money. And I don't think that's fair. Like in my heart, me being the person I am, I just consciously don't feel like they can just do that, you know? Like I expect everybody to be kind, but you know, kindness comes in all shapes and forms, and some are disguised very, very well. And you know, I hope that they wouldn't do that, but at the same time, you just never know. And I mean, you don't know somebody's home situation. You don't know what they're paying for, what they're not paying for, if they can even afford this. I know some people are not financially where they want to be, but they do want to compete, so they find how to compete. And, you know, it's very disappointing that they can be affected in that way because, okay, all that money gets taken away. Are they going to be able to pay rent? Are they going to be able to put food on their table? Like, you just don't know. So it's not a fun situation to be in for some people.
Incredibly well said. Yeah,
I think I agree. I think I'm glad you are all voicing this, and we're happy to provide the space to do that. And maybe we could consider, you know, like we had the 2020 Iron Culture USAPL Nationals unofficial. We could potentially look into hosting Worlds. I think I lost my login from my MySpace, but I'll put the word out on that platform soon as well. But no, in all seriousness, I think these are things that people need to understand. And what goes into world selection, travel, getting a visa to enter a country, and all that is something that people don't really see when they just go, "Oh, I'm going to watch the live stream of Worlds." Also, for the listeners, just to get an idea of how this Nationals is different, it's normally in October, and then Worlds is in June. Normally, there's 1,000 to 1,300 competitors. So it has definitely been different, for obvious reasons, of course. But I think this is a good insight, so all the listeners can see that there is a toll to that. There is a cost to those changes, and I think I hope people are doing what they can to mitigate that as much as possible. But I think we need to put the lifters first. I'll just say that because that is what the sport really is. It's not about a federation or anything else like that. The federations are consisted of the lifters who make it up, and powerlifting is a grassroots sport if there ever was one. People in the audience, most of them do the squat, bench, deadlift. I would say it's only second in terms of grassrootness to bodybuilding, because there's no one in the crowd who actually is just a pure fan of bodybuilding. Those are called creepers. So I know when I look out into the audience, those are my family or other people who also wear Speedos and flex. And it is very similar to powerlifting. So if we don't take care of the lifters, there is no sport.
Well,
and I'll leave it at that.
Well said by everyone. Yeah, no, well said by everyone. Eric, I concur completely. Let the lifters lift. It is a dang shame that we have 3 USAPL champions that them going to IPF Worlds is in jeopardy. That's all I'll say about that. Now, look, I'm here to try and provide a neat solution. I've been mulling this over. I'm ready to say it on air. It took me quite a bit of time. You know, we've been doing this for the last hour, and I heard each of your stories, and it was really compelling. I mean, just what you had to go through to be champion, the desire just to compete on the highest stage. And I had to make a choice. And it was very difficult for me to do this. As far as I understand that if you're in the US, USAPL, it might be jeopardized going to IPF Worlds. As I understand it, for Canada, that is not the situation. I, of course, am Canadian. So I had to make a choice. I'm going to extend this to Keiko. Keiko, my man, I know you mentioned you have a fiance, but if you want to get married, we can make this happen. Superficially, of course. Hey, we don't have to, there doesn't need to be romance. This is strictly just so you can compete at Worlds.
For Canada.
But I'm very down. So I'm just saying that public. And then you go to Belarus or Sweden now. You go to Sweden, you compete at IPF Worlds. Hey, man. And you get that bag for everyone. So we all got to make sacrifices. And I know Eric's married, so he can't put himself forth. You know, this is what's up, man.
And I'm also not yet a New Zealand citizen, so we'd have to wait another year. I would get divorced. Someone would marry me, and then you could lift for New Zealand.
Well, it's not just like a sucky thing that, I kid you not, we are still trying to, like, reaching out to IPF, like, is there any other way we can compete? Yeah. Can we, like, Russia, when they had that whole doping crap happen, there were, like, athletes representing themselves because they couldn't represent the country. Right. So, you know, we have asked these questions. We have said, well, can another team represent us? Like, who's going to be the lucky team here to get some really strong athletes? But they're like, no, actually, we don't know right now. But it's like, well, what do you know? So it's sad. It's sad that we even have to think of other solutions like this. Like, you know, we're from the US, but we're representing ourselves. Like, what would we even, like, you know, it's hard.
What is that process like? You know?
Yeah, what is that process like? Like, to even think that there could be a chance we're no longer representing a team who we have for years, just so we have the chance to be able to compete on what is seen as the highest platform. You know, it's crazy right now. So,
Heather, what you said there about what is seen as the highest platform, I actually have a question that I'll put to all three of you. I opened this podcast talking about how USAPL Nationals is arguably the most competitive competition in the IPF. How do you view that when you compare Worlds to Nationals, knowing that this might be more competitive, but this is a world title, this is the experience to represent, or the opportunity to represent your country? What has more value for each of you guys?
Nationals is very competitive. I would have to agree with you there. I do see, you know, with like Sam's class and Jonathan's class, there you do see those back to back, like, oh, it's going to come down to the pool. When you get to Worlds, it's not really up to us. Like, I can total 15 kilos under my best because what we want to do is make sure we are solidifying that win. So it may not be our best performance, but we're doing what's going to help not just ourselves, but our team as well, so we can make sure that we win as a female team, as a male team. So as far as like hype and everything goes, I'll always give that to nationals. But being able to, again, represent like your home country and just stand there with a flag, hear your anthem, like that's something very special. It's something that nobody at that moment can take away from you. And to have that opportunity to officially set world records. It is something that is very empowering to me. And then for me personally, I see more competition at Worlds than I would at Nationals. Again, not taking anything from any of the other competitors, but I do see from my own experiences that if there's going to be somebody to challenge me in the recent years, it has always been at a world competition. And again, it's because we're doing exactly what we need to do to win. For 2 Worlds, I have pulled for the win, and one was solely one off of body weight. Could I have done more? Absolutely. Was I able to do more because I'm not running my numbers? No. So you will see things coming down to the wire, but it's only because you're not put in a situation to where you can really risk it. So it does feel good to be able to come out on top at Worlds, get those world records. But I do feel like with most weight classes in USAPL, you're going to have that fight and that grit and stuff at nationals. And so there's pros and cons to each one.
Right.
But, I want my world records. I want that official title. So I want to go.
Absolutely. No, that makes sense. And for the listener, just for some perspective of those who aren't super familiar with powerlifting, Heather competes in the 47 kilo class, which is on the one end of the bell spectrum, while we have Sam and Jonathan who compete in kind of the middle of their respective divisions weight classes. So when the USAPL, which is the largest member nation of the IPF, just statistically, what you're going to see is a whole lot of really good lifters in those classes, while when you see say, for example, like Ray Williams' class or Heather's class, which are on the other extreme ends of the bell curve, you're going to get less people from even a large member nation like the USAPL. So sometimes to find the best competitors in those classes, it'll take other nations to be involved, which is why there are some years, exactly, like with Ray Williams, where the biggest competition he had was at Worlds versus Nationals. However, if you're talking about the other weight classes, that's not necessarily the case. So it's just an interesting statistical kind of phenomenon that occurs. So anyway, I'll shut up about statistics. No one wants to hear that. Sam, Jonathan, what are your thoughts about Nationals versus Worlds?
Well, in previous years, if in the 63 class, if you was to win U.S. Nationals, you typically win World. However, that is not the case now. I am about to enter a gauntlet. It's going to far surpass any gauntlet that I have entered at U.S. Raw Nationals. So it's going to be a
Class Worlds, the most competitive. Let the listeners know if there's one class in the female class I'm excited to see, it's hers, because like she said, she is going into the gauntlet, and I am stoked for it. Like, I want to cheer Sam on, but Sam, man, that's the class you want to watch, the 63 class.
So that's what really fired me up at the Nationals, because I'm like, because at first it wasn't going to Worlds, and I think that's a part of the mindset, was like just going through the motions, I knew what I needed to do to win Nationals. I ran the numbers, I knew what I needed. But maybe Tuesday of Nationals, Pete Spence told me that Worlds was moving to Sweden and the U.S. was going to send a team. And that's when I was like, oh, shit.
It's on.
I have to, step it up 10 times, because if I entered Worlds in my current form, I would not be doing myself I would be doing myself a disservice in my nation. So that was that mindset shift right there. I'm like, okay, like this just got serious, because I will be entering a battle, one of the biggest battles known to mankind.
Well, that world record total kept getting flip-flopped from like country to country to country. Like while these other countries are still able to compete, it went from like Russia to France to Italy, back to France. Sam's not able to compete. I'm like, what is going on? Like these 63 kilo girls, like I'm telling you, I'm going to say it again. That is the class to watch. Who cares if I compete? I'm there for Sam.
I'm looking forward to that. Like that is what I look for. That is what motivates me. That what makes me want to train hard, want to train with intention. I'm looking forward to it so much. So hopefully we're able to go.
I love it. And Omar, this reminds me of our conversation we just had with Ashton and Bryce, and how Ashton seems to improve more when he puts himself in the position where he has a more competitive environment, and how he has experienced Bryce as someone who has pushed him to higher heights, and he will always follow the competition. And I think that's a really important thing to be self-aware of is what makes you tick as a competitor,
right.
what drives you to a higher level. So I think that's really interesting to hear that that's a commonality among many lifters.
Keiko, what about you, man? Because I know you're looking forward to competing, but like, what would that mean? Let's say competing at Worlds versus Nationals to you.
Well, it's hard for me to say because I've never done a Worlds, but I always like, Nats is always, that's my fourth Nats, I think. Yeah, that's my fourth Nats. And what was the original question? Which one's more competitive?
Nats. How do you view the two? How do you view the two as different? Because they are, but they're
Nationals
the average person would be like, hey, you're the world champ, national champ, but maybe not actually that way in certain cases. Go ahead.
Yeah, especially in USAPL Nationals, and especially in the 93s, that's like, it's a very deep class nowadays, so like to win that is in my opinion, is like it's pretty good, I don't know how else to say it. It's pretty good, right?
Bro.
I think it's pretty good, like, because everyone's like strong. Everyone like pulls like, someone's, if you're not pulling like high 700s, someone's squatting like low 700s. If you're not benching like low 500, if you're not benching 500s, you better be made up somewhere else, type of thing, right? So, it's good. Like, I'm happy. It's cool to win Nats, and just because our pool's so large, like we just have so much talent, and but like we were saying, like I'd love to just. I think Worlds is its own like entity, it's like it. Fortunately for us, like, and generally it's like that, like if you win USA Nats, you can kind of win Worlds usually. But the 93s and the other countries, Anatoly just moved up. He was the former world champ in the 93s. He moved up to 105s like a month ago or something. Like really, really recently, like March. He did a meet and he was like, I think it said it was like 103. So he gained a lot of weight. He was like, he looked huge. I was like, what the heck, right? So, there's the other guys left. There's just like Gustav, and who knows? Like that's why I'm like, for me, I'm the same way as Ashton, because me and Ashton are actually pretty good buddies. Like I'm gonna go to the competition, and I hope some like anomaly shows up. I like hope for an anomaly, crazy someone to show up, and just like, okay, I have to fight this guy. Like I'm just ready to fight this. Like competition wise, Heather's like. Like, so like, Worlds. I hope it happens. And there's just a bunch of strong people there. I get to compete against them.
Going against strong people from all over the country, you're being able to meet some really cool people, and I hope everybody gets that experience. But I think Worlds, like Sam was saying, it kind of lights a fire underneath you, especially because it is out of your hands at this point as far as numbers go. And as it gets closer, like people do those little sneak disses on the internet, and you're like, oh, I know that's about me. About me? Like, I'm just trying to relax here. Like,
just trying to play my Stardew Valley shit.
Yeah, like that's what I do to meditate. Leave me alone. But some people, like, they do it to get under your skin. And I mentioned this before in a different podcast. That's when you see the people who are easy to break and who has that fire lit underneath them. Like, okay, if you want to play this game, I'm not going to do the talking over social media. I'm just going to let it show on the platform that, I'm here for a reason and I'm here to win. And I think, everybody that's at Worlds has that mindset because they're there for a reason. They're there to be the best. And, that's why I look forward to some of these classes, because I'm like, it's like, it comes down to a matter of, if you miss a lift, oh crap. Okay, who's going to have the stronger pull? Because a big puller, they know exactly what they got to do to win. I'll be going against 47 kilos that are benching like 200 something pounds. Me personally, I don't care. You got it, girl. I will cheer you on. You go for that world record. But I know what I'm about to do. Sam knows what, her strengths are. So does Jonathan. And I think that's what I look most forward to, is seeing their strengths just come alive on that platform and seeing exactly what they need to do to make sure that they come on top, just like all these other competitors are trying to do. Can't miss a lift. You can't do it.
So what this nationals made me realize something very important. That one, you got to show up. Because a lot of people didn't show up for various reasons, right? You have to show up, and two, you have to perform. Like after nationals, I've seen a lot of people inserting their best total. It's like, oh, if I would have went to nationals and did X, I would have placed X. And it's like, you can't do that. Like, one, you got to show up, and two, you have to perform. Like Jonathan said, he won, but it wasn't his best total. Someone else can't insert their best total and say, oh, I would have beat Jonathan. That's not how, that's not how competing works. For Worlds, we have to travel literally across the world to compete. That's a 10-hour flight for many of us. So we just can't insert our best total, our best gym lift, our best national total, and and think that's going to decide the winner. Like, we all actually have to show up and still compete at the highest level on that day. And the best lifter on that day will be the one that gets announced world champion.
Mm-hmm. That's well said. And it's an interesting thing from a coach's perspective, because I've been to Worlds twice, not as a lifter, to be clear, and getting to work with Bryce there and a few other lifters is just a pure honor, and it's very interesting to help lifters manage that, because in reality, you don't go into Worlds with a blank slate. Or any large competition. You may have snarky social media posts on your mind. You may have anxiety that can only be calmed by certain video games. You may have your last better meet total in your head, or you may have better totals that you saw on social media from some other lifter. But none of that really matters. And while some lifters can use that as a way to motivate themselves and do better, a lot of the times my job as a coach is to get my lifter to focus on their own damn lane. Like, you don't win a 100-meter sprint looking over your shoulder to see how close other people are to you. And a lot of the times I find in the modern world of powerlifting, the distractions are ever present. But whether it feels like it or not, you have the opportunity to opt in or opt out from being distracted. So it's trying to help lifters figure out what's facilitative. And I find that Worlds it's not that bad for that. Like, you do have to travel like shit, man. For me to get to Sweden, that's a 30-hour, I'm traveling for 30 hours, just legit. I don't have to lift, so it doesn't matter. But man, but the environment for Worlds, like in Belarus compared to 2017 Nationals, worlds apart. There's like empty stands, Calgary, a little bit bigger, but still it feels much more like a regional meet. And it's a bunch of people who haven't seen each other since last international competition. Sometimes they only see each other at Worlds. So there's a very much a different feel at Worlds, where people are coming in, and it is a much more kind of small, meet and greet kind of environment. I think it's a little more relaxed, and I find that it's a little more facilitative to being able to focus on your own damn lane, as I said previously. But man, I think nationals, where it's like, okay, do I even get to go to Worlds? It's sometimes more competitive depending on the class you're in, and it is just, like I said previously, not this year, 1,300 competitors. Man, I think if you can keep your shit together at nationals, you're probably going to be okay when game time comes for Worlds. Granted, it does depend on who shows up. There's a couple examples we've talked about here where you have a more competitive field in your division than even at nationals. But I think this is useful. I wanted to provide some context for the listeners to get an idea of how the competitions are so different, despite the fact that you might expect them just to be the next level of the prior one. So anyway, really appreciate everyone's insights on that.
That got me thinking real quick about Worlds. Just to kind of say one more thing about Worlds, is that I would finally like to take the official world record total, like you mentioned. I think I've unofficially broken it like 4 times. In the past, like,
just do it, Jonathan. Don't say
anything.
Just do it. Oh my gosh, are you crazy?
Yeah. No, I'm just like, for it to be official, like, as I've broken the bench so many times at this point, and the total as well. I'm just like, since like mid 2019, I would have had it. So it's been unofficial since then. So I'm just like, I just want.
Well, I really hope you get the opportunity to. I really hope there's a way for you guys to get out there.
I already provided a solution to Jonathan, so my DMs are open.
yeah. That's like plan. Yeah, that's a plan B for that.
Jeff Nippert isn't married either yet, right?
He is not, and he's a great Canadian too.
Yeah, we've got a lot of Canadian connections for you, John. So
surrogate husbands.
Yep. Let's talk once this episode is over. We're going to get you representing the Maple Leaf at the very least. World record's a world record. Doesn't matter what country it's for. I mean, come on, folks.
Yeah. I do find it interesting where I appreciate we're outsiders like myself and Eric into what goes on as USA Pale competitors that also desire to compete on the world's highest stage, and it does feel all too often kind of what you said, Heather, like parents fighting at the expense of kids, the children, where it's like, well, wait, what's best for me? Like I'm the lifter, like I'm the kid here. Like, have you ever considered my position in all this? Like what I actually want to do? So it's just sad too, because I think sometimes listeners forget this, that they think, oh, like you compete at Worlds, like that's awesome. They fly you out, right? It's like, nope, like I have to pay for it. I have to take time off my work, the mental energy and everything else. Like it's you're sacrificing so much. Like you, the lifters, make this sport happen, right? And you're doing all these things, and you're just asking for at the very least the opportunity to show your skills and your talents, right? So it's crazy.
Yeah, there ain't no IPF league minimum salary, folks. So
it's $0.
Yeah. I mean, you do get some payouts if you win, and I do know some of the payouts have gone up some. Other countries do pay for their athletes to go. Like they are able to afford that, which is great. Unfortunately, the USA, I mean, no. So it's just one of those things to where. Going back, like we just want our answers. I mean, as a teacher in North Carolina, I pay for my substitutes. Okay. That is like $100 a day. So I'm trying to figure out like, how much time am I about to take off? North Carolina always says, oh, we're going to change these teacher rules. No, you're not. I'm done listening to y'all because y'all have done nothing for us. And it's just like, just don't have us waste our money, and because it is an excessive amount of money, nobody wants to lose out on that. And so, again, I don't know everybody's financial situation. It's not my business, but you don't know who's struggling. Fortunately, I'm not having to work during the summer because I'm secure during the whole year. But my situation is different from somebody else's, and I never want somebody to get like put in a situation where they're just out $3,000. It's difficult.
Omar is still in shock from finding out this about North Carolina.
Eric,
this poor Canadian man.
Bro.
You've always thought your bigger brother was a first world country. We're not. The U.S. is a third world country holding a Gucci bag. Okay, that's what we are, and that's okay.
Eric, I'm not even trying to get political
Your
here.
face
so
when she said that, you were like, what?
When you take time off, like if you have to go away like a vacation or whatever, you have to pay your substitute teachers. Like it's your job, but you have to pay the person that replaces you just so you can compete at IPF Worlds?
Yes, unless it's like professional leave where
No.
simply doing something for the school, we pay for it. They try to tell us they're going to give us a COVID relief check. That was like $2,500. So of course there's some single mom teachers who are like, oh crap, this is great. That never came. Shoot, I said I ain't gonna believe that till it's pending in my bank account. Don't play me. Like, it is, you know, unfortunately, teacher assistants have it way worse than we do in North Carolina. So thankfully, I'm not in that position. But yeah, they take that right from me. It's like $100 a day. So if you get married, you go on a honeymoon. Sorry.
Well, Omar, at least our healthcare situation in the U.S. is really good. So, I mean, we got that going for us. So.
Oh, man. Eric, go on, bro.
I'm not going to go
I'm
on.
still recovering. I'm like, if this was
a
UFC fight, I've been rocked, and I'm just like dazed right now. I'm just like trying to grapple the other person. I got nothing to say.
I think the only thing I'm going to say is you lost us the SBD sponsorship. I lost us our American audience with my snide comments. So I'm going to leave it at that, and I'm going to turn it around back to the winner's circle here. Thank you so much for your candid experiences, your thoughts, the challenges, the look behind the curtain, your individual experiences on the platform. And I just want to open it up. Is there anything else that the three of you want to say, bring up, or you think we'd be remiss not to cover with this opportunity to have you three lifters on?
I look forward to all of us being world champions because I know it's there.
I love it.
Yes. Amen.
Well, that's awesome. Well, again, I just want to truly, sincerely thank you all for making the time, expressing your thoughts, being so candid. I think this will be a useful podcast for the listener who a lot of the times we just see kind of the exciting part of powerlifting. We see the battles, we see the hype, you hear the podcasts, and I think it's important for us to understand that this sport really only does exist at the whim of the willingness of competitors to compete in it. So we've got to take care of them. So do your part, folks, and hopefully, if there's anyone listening who is in a position of power, do the right thing. That's all I have to say. All right.
No. I want to thank the three of you for being on. As to echo what Eric said, I think this has been a very informative conversation. And I think to echo back to another episode we had with Brian Whitaker, one of my favorites, the bodybuilding episode, maximizing considering the constraints, what you guys do on game day, or also just some of the life lessons you guys learned that you implement into training, but other aspects of your life, like what you can focus on as an example. And like this current climate is maybe an opportunity for that as an example as you try and find those answers. So I just appreciate the three of you sharing your experiences. We'll make sure to link your social media in the description for everyone to check it out. And folks, this is your opportunity to have your voice heard, maybe, because we're at the end of the episode and you could go ahead and leave a rating and review on iTunes. It does help us out with the algorithm. Full transparency, if it's not 5 stars, it's not worth your time. Just think about all that you got to go on the computer, you got to log in, you're going to give less than 5 stars. Like that just seems like a whole lot of work. And we're here about bar efficiency. So make yourself efficient. Give that 5 stars. It feels so good. And we'll catch you every single Monday. We'll see you in that next episode.